Since 1982, Ivo Sasek has been active as a full-time international Bible teacher and has held around 2,000 lectures worldwide. Besides that, he conducted rehabilitation work for drug addicts, mentally ill people and alcohol addicts for many years. In the midst of those difficult circumstances, together with his team, he researched the laws of life in the community that orients itself towards the bigger picture. From the very first hour, Ivo Sasek taught that humanity is an organism whose members are interwoven with each other and every action has an effect on the other members. After the rehabilitation time, he founded the faith movement OCG, Christ Organism Generation, and made the experiences he gained accessible to many people. It became evident that the principles taught also apply in an international setting with thousands of people at a practical level. Together with his family, he demonstrated in 9 oratories how through your relationship to God and attention to these laws of life and community, you can live in heavenly harmony. With this message, however, he was a thorn in the side for some circles. So Sasek was defamed, slandered, and attacked by mass media right from the start. In over 40 years of serving, he had to undergo thousands of attacks by the media and month-long hacker attacks. Countless players have tried to this day to discredit him and his message. But he didn't let himself be intimidated and founded, amongst other things, the Anti-Censorship Coalition, AZK, the internet TV station KLA TV, as well as the newspaper VNC Hand Express. All these initiatives aim at providing people with a counter-voice to the narratives of the media, thus enabling them for responsible own judgments and decisions. At KLA TV, he published a whole series of documentary films and contributions on current events. They were translated into 45 languages and count almost 50 million views. Besides, he wrote more than 20 theological books, as well as brochures and tracts. As film director and screenwriter, he produced 20 feature films, amongst which are 3 epic cinema productions. In his lectures and films, Sasek always points to the main themes in world events. Elaborate research and well-founded sources are Ivo Sasek's and KLA TV's trademark. He provides orientation in the often so complex global developments, placing them into an understandable context regarding the bigger picture. Many of his prognoses and predictions have since come true, and his events and lectures that he is publishing on KLA TV are meanwhile regularly followed by an audience of millions. Today, Ivo Sasek will also point to a central theme that has an enormous impact on global developments. He will present findings that have been accumulated by hundreds of voluntary contributors in elaborate investigative researches.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you. There it was, the first keyword. Hundreds of people have been working for months. Also from my side, thank you so much. This sounds so cheap. Well, I'm going to pay back, show with all my might to give good things back to you. Thanks to all those who are online here with us worldwide today. We were looking forward to this day so much, and hell has been mightily revolting against it. I just have to state this openly at this point. I have never experienced greater headwinds than prior to this 22nd AZK, and I held over 2,000 lectures. It is the 22nd AZK, and so on, and there have never before been greater adverse winds we experienced in spirit, soul, and body, and this gives us a foretaste that today will be a very special day, because today we are going to break through like never before in new dimensions. I'm convinced of that, because these are typical signs, we know them. This is how things go. And I'd like to thank all the speakers right from the start who are here today, all those who raise their voices today. I confess you are really the people who are key now in this world. You are the heroes of this time. You lived through these waves. It was the same with each of us. There were winds coming against us from all sides. I won't go deeper into this here, but we withstood these heavy gales, and we are all standing here now and are proud of spending this day together with you. Before I will start my lecture for today, someone is clapping still. Before I will dive into the topic I'm going to talk about today, which is this work of investigation, I will start a bit piously. Usually I don't do so, but today I have to. You know, when you find yourself in the midst of this darkest hour where you sometimes just don't see any next step and you have no idea how it should go on, when you are at the point where you are not able to define your own needs anymore, because there's so much suddenly at once that you would need. And I was sitting there in the morning, I was still early, and then it occurred to me that God came into my mind. And suddenly I realized God has needs too. And you know, when God speaks something, you just know this is it. And it took 1 second, and I suddenly knew God has needs too. We have been created in His image, haven't we? By this He shows us that He also has needs. And at this moment, I really didn't know what is God's need or desire. Can He have a need, a desire? I pondered upon this question. I was looking for an answer and prayed. And then an answer came from heaven. I really have to place it here at the beginning now. I just wanted to know, what is your need, your desire? What good can we people do to you? What could anyone give you? It is you who have given everything. And like a revelation, it came over me that God said, yes, I have a need. I have a soul desire. I want to be able passing on what I am. I want to give myself like a gift. Everything that I am, I want to place inside you and make it flow to others through you. It's only when I can give that my need is satisfied. Wow, 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 wow. This really resurrected me at the moment, you know. And of course, if a greedy person listens, at the very first moment, this person will say, oh, this is nice, isn't it? God loves to give, I love to take. But out of all things, that's not what we are talking about here. And the reason why I place these words at the beginning is because you people who are here with us today, you are not such people who just come and say, give me, give me, give me. Wow, the AZK always gives, KLA TV always gives, and I always take. You are different. You are people who come to receive in order to share it afterwards. Is that right? I can't hear you. Exactly. You know, we are being accused from all sides to be people wanting something for themselves. The complete opposite is the case. I noticed my greatest need that I had in these headwinds surrounding this approaching AZK. It was nothing other than I feared I could not be able to give anymore. And saying this, I'm not just talking of such lectures I'm giving now. I'm speaking of giving my money for investigation and education, being able to use all my houses and belongings for this purpose. I realized this was my deepest need, that I would be able to give. Whenever I give, I'm so much in heaven. I'm in heaven. As soon as I can no longer give, I'm in hell. And suddenly I realized, yes, this is it. This is it. But because God lives inside us, it is just like this. I give everything and I give it all the more and more. I want to give more and more. I become happier when I do so in everything. But I do not want to give it to the addict, you understand? I do not want to give it to somebody who just takes it in and only comes to take, to receive, and does not pass it on. I do not devote my life to such a purpose anymore. I did rehabilitation work for 15 years and had to see this, the big battle we always had. They came to take, and they were healed as soon as they had learned it is more blessed to give than to take. And therefore, I tell you today, I am happy. God is happy. Our needs are satisfied today when you are here to receive seed to spread in this world, to multiply this. And you will see if you do so, so often as you give, your lives for the community, for this world, there you will be happy. There you will be healed. That's where you are satisfied, like children at their mother's breast. Okay? Good. I needed to share this with you. A somewhat pious start. But you see, it's worth listening to my pious thoughts, right? Good. So now today we need to talk about the highest degree Freemasonry together once more. And maybe you say, we had that already. Wasn't that enough? Isn't that topic outdated by now? And my answer is, no, not at all, absolutely not. Because we have to deal with the problem of high-degree Freemasonry as long as, I would say, the whole world, yes, even every child has understood what is in store for all of us if the following discoveries and connections do not prove to be a mere lies. And therefore I call all citizens of this earth to carefully investigate this from this day. It is necessary to examine if what has come to light, all these clues, pose a real world danger or not. However, I do not call on anyone to act in blind faith or even obedience or even commit any violent acts. The only thing I am looking for is an awakening of the peoples. An awakening in order to examine and monitor all the circumstantial evidence presented today, because we are presented with a valid initial suspicion. And even more than that, it poses a serious concern, you know? In our KLA TV documentary Warning, Global Danger, High-Degree Freemasonry, we revealed the extent of the lies contained, for example, in the Masonic claim that Freemasons do not interfere in politics. In this film, we proved that almost all US presidents were high-degree or highest-degree Freemasons. Yes. And in my speech, World in the Net of Freemasonry, I proved that at least 12 world-influencing institutions were founded by Freemasons. Do you remember? The UN, WHO, EU, WEF, BIS, UNESCO, Federal Reserve, NASA, and so on. But you know, these people don't just found organizations. No, they then control these entities, of course, and expand them more and more like a spider's web. And they do this with the aim of bringing the entire world population under their control. Before I present you with a whole host of more entities founded by high-level Masons today, I would first like to sensitize all of us to a fundamentally important distinction. We must do this now, and I would like to point out in advance, with all due emphasis, that I am by no means aiming at an overall condemnation with this new research today. The problem with Freemasonry is no different from the problem with any religion or church or nationality or cult, race, and so on. Name what you want. Whenever, for example, a Swiss citizen commits a crime, perhaps even a cruel terrorist attack, it must be clear to the whole world that this is not a crime committed by Switzerland or the Swiss people. Do you understand? And the same applies when Germans, French, British, or Americans commit crimes. Such crimes do not give us the right to despise or even curse the entire nation. And even if a Jew, an Arab, or a black person commits a crime in any way, even if entire groups of them commit crimes, that does not give us the right to make racist remarks or even take racist action. For example, we should not develop an overall hatred of any ethnic group or anything like that. And the same principle applies, of course, to all churches, free churches, cults, secret societies, parties, and so on. After all, such organizations are structured like businesses or large corporations. Usually, they have pyramidal structures. This means that at the bottom of the pyramid are the contributors, the servants, the ordinary members. But you could also call those who pay everything. And above this base level, there are various levels of coaches, overseers, and administrators. Above them are the advanced, the specialists, and so on. They are placed there. And at the very top of every business, every organization, but also every religion, every party or cult, are the actual heads and masterminds of the whole thing. If serious crimes are committed at the highest levels of management, such as child abuse, drug trafficking, trafficking in women, covert speculation deals, arms trafficking, ritual violence, and possibly murder, incitement to terrorism and war, if all this comes to light at some point, we must not allow ourselves to be carried away into making sweeping judgments about all members or collaborators, as if they were suddenly all criminals. This is very important to me. I say this emphatically at the outset because today we will see real atrocities. We are truly looking into a pit of atrocities today. Atrocities at the highest levels of the Masonic secret society and others. But I say it again, this has nothing to do with those dearest people whom I also got to know personally on vacation or with my grandmother. My grandmother was a devout Catholic. For me, she was the most wonderful woman you could imagine. But this faithful church taxpayer had no idea what was going on in the upper echelons of her religion. So, loving people like her should not be affected by a general judgment, especially not when there is concrete evidence that, for example, the top leadership of the Catholic Church, the Vatican, etc., are deeply involved and entrenched in Satanism. Our dearest friends, who at some point came out as members of the lower Masonic degrees, have no idea what is going on at the top of high-degree Freemasonry, which we are talking about today, by the way, in great detail. So let us never damage any not initiated or well-meaning and often extremely selfless, helpful people, only because their highest ranks have entangled themselves in atrocious deeds, okay? Well, after this introduction, which surely was sufficiently long now, let us move on to the substance. As I said, with this speech, I am complementing the two documentaries mentioned before about the world danger of high-degree Freemasonry. And because of the abundance of facts, I can really only give you the big titles. If I were to elaborate on every area of Freemasonry's dominion, we would still be sitting here tonight, believe me. But as you heard before, everything I disclose in the following can be substantiated with what we consider to be truly solid sources, and we are giving you free access to these sources. It is important that you hear this now. The sources have been compiled, they are available so that everybody can see that we are not spreading some strange fantasies. As already mentioned, this speech is based on thousands of hours of diligent research by well over 300 KLA TV contributors of all kinds. If I were to list them all now, it would take another 10 minutes. For starters, let's take another look at why this secret high-level Freemasonry was ultimately made out as a world danger. And what is presented today is from the mouths of the founding fathers and all kinds of high-level Freemasons themselves. You can hear from their own mouths that they deliberately mislead their own people, deliberately lie to them, and keep them in the dark about the fact that they have devoted themselves to Satan. The ultimate aim of this is to bring the entire world population under this rule, under service to Satan. I'm just going to say this up front as a big headline, and you'll see that I can prove it. We see that lies, deception, and misdirection are their constant tools, their constant principle, and not just the exception. Proof of this fact is given right away by the founder of the Scottish Rite of Highest Degree Freemasonry, who wrote the so-called Freemason Bible. This is the 33-degree Freemason Albert Pike, who was promoted to Brigadier General in 1861 while he was fighting in Mexico. He was promoted by US President Abraham Lincoln, who was a Freemason master himself. Pike's work, entitled Morals and Dogma, is available to us in its English and its German version. On page 104 to 105 it reads, I quote, "Masonry, like all the religions, all the mysteries, Hermeticism and alchemy, conceals its secrets from all except the adepts and sages, or the elect, and uses false explanations and misrepresentations of its symbols to mislead those who deserve only to be misled." Understood? Pike then explains this principle of deliberate deception in more detail on page 819. Pay well attention. The blue degrees are but the outer court of portico of the temple. Part of the symbols are displayed there to the initiate, but he is intentionally misled by false interpretations. It is not intended that he shall understand them, but it is intended that he shall imagine he understands them. Their true explication is reserved for the adepts, the princes of Masonry. Now listen carefully. The whole body of the royal and sacerdotal art was hidden so carefully centuries since in the high degrees. Nice brothers, aren't they? The ones at the top. And I say, love the ones at the bottom ranks who don't know, but keep an eye on the ones at the top. How this targeted game of hide-and-seek works can be seen more clearly if you compare the theories on page 102 of Morals and Dogma with the practice of high-degree Freemasonry. Pike wrote from page 102 onward, quote, "The devil is the personification of atheism or idolatry. For the initiates, this is not a person, but a force, created for good, but which may serve for evil. It is the instrument of liberty or free will. They represent this force which presides over the physical generation under the mythological and horned form of the god Pan. Thence came the he-goat of the Sabbath, brother of the ancient serpent and the light-bearer or phosphor, of which the poets have made the false Lucifer of the legend." You see, only by this you can understand why there is a symbol of Baphomet in the main Masonic temple room at the headquarters of the Mother Supreme Council of the World in Washington, D.C. There it is. I will soon come back more thoroughly to the true problem of this Baphomet. But now let us first return to the trivializing claim of high-degree Freemasonry, the devil is merely a force. The extent to which this official teaching of the devil being not more than a force itself is a deliberately misleading lie is revealed by a comparative glance, a second glance at the unofficial practice of high-degree Freemasonry. And how this supposed mere force is dealt with in reality has been written down by 33-degree Freemason Arthur Edward Wade in his book, The Book of Black Magic. On page 244, he gives instructions on how to summon Lucifer, the prince of all rebellious spirits, for the first time. Now pay close attention. Notice how he addresses the devil as a person and not as a mere force. This is his quote, his invocation. He calls out, "Emperor Lucifer, master and prince of rebellious spirits, I adjure thee to leave thine abode in whatever quarter of the world it may be situated, and come hither to communicate with me." End quote. Is it a force or a person he is speaking to here? When they say, for the initiated it is a force, you see what the truth is. I say, falsehood is notoriously the principle. And on page 687 of the unofficial Freemason secret doctrine, Pike lets the cat out of the bag all the way. He writes, "The deity of the Old Testament is everywhere represented as the direct author of evil, commissioning evil and lying spirits to men." Now you see how he turns the Old Testament of the Bible upside down. Suddenly God is the evil one, responsible for all evil. Furthermore, concerning the unofficial secret declaration, A.C. de la Rive recorded in his transcript of July 14, 1889, what is to be understood by these, namely when 33-degree Freemason Albert Pike gave the following directions to the 23 Supreme Councils of the world. He noted the following. On page 588, Pike then says, quote, "That which we must say to a crowd is, we worship a God without superstition. To you, sovereign Grand Inspectors General, we say this, that you may repeat it to the brethren of the 32nd, 31st, and 30th degrees. The Masonic religion should be, by all of us initiates of the high degrees, maintained in the purity of the Luciferian doctrine. If Lucifer were not God, would Adonai and his priests calumniate him? Yes, Lucifer is God, and unfortunately Adonai is also God. And the true and pure philosophical religion is the belief in Lucifer, the equal of Adonai, but Lucifer, God of light and God of good, is struggling for humanity against Adonai, the God of darkness and evil." End quote. Do you see how it is at the top? Satanism reigns high up there. The 33-degree Freemason Manly Palmer Hall glorified the Masonic key in the fight against this God of the Bible with the following words, quote, "When the Mason learns the proper application of the dynamo of living power, he has learned the mastery of his craft. The seething energies of Lucifer are in his hands." End quote. We now keep in mind how the highest degree Freemasons in unofficial practice invoke the devil as Emperor Lucifer, ruler and prince of all rebellious spirits. Two notable women in Freemasonry were the famous occultist Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, who founded the Theosophical Society, and Alice A. Bailey, who was married to a 32-degree Freemason. The latter founded the publishing house Lucifer Trust, meaning trust the devil. Two quotes from Blavatsky in The Secret Doctrine on pages 71 and 73 read as follows, quote, "The devil is now called darkness by the church. He was transformed by the church into Lucifer or Satan. Now watch out, because he is higher and older than Jehovah and had to be sacrificed to the new dogma." Here it is in black and white. The devil is older and higher than the God of the Bible, who is said to be Yahweh, who created heaven and earth. She is talking about Jehovah here, but in the original texts, Jehovah and Yahweh are the same. Jehovah, or Yahweh, esoterically as Elohim, is also the serpent or dragon that tempted Eve. And the dragon is an old glyph for astral light, which is the wisdom of chaos. New world out of chaos. That sounds familiar. Do you see it? Blavatsky was a member of the Masonic order and sat in the lodges shown in the background. I won't read them to you. You don't want to hear that. Now you can also see clearly from which corner these new blasphemies against Yahweh come from, which are currently being spread in a divisive manner among us educators. This Luciferian secret society not only demonizes the God of the Old Testament, but also Jesus Christ and the Christian religion as a whole. In summary, everything good is declared evil and everything evil is declared good. Justice increasingly becomes injustice. Injustice increasingly becomes justice. Just in this way, you understand what is developing out there in the world. I say, dear friends, we are standing at the cradle of nihilism here. This is the dissolution of all values we have held, and they are being turned into their opposites. This is typical of Satan. No wonder, then, that the following can be read on page 215 in the second volume of The Secret Doctrine. I quote again, "So little have the first Christians, who despoiled the Jews of their Bible, understood the first 4 chapters of Genesis in their esoteric meaning, that they never perceived that not only was no sin intended in their disobedience, but that actually the serpent was the Lord God himself, who, as the Ophis, the Logos or bearer of divine creative wisdom, taught mankind to become creators in their turn." End quote. You see it upside down? Everything is inverted. Volume 1 of The Secret Doctrine, page 415, puts it this way, quote, "Once that the key to Genesis is in our hands, it is the scientific and symbolical Kabbalah which unveils the secret. The great serpent of the Garden of Eden and the Lord God are identical." End quote. I will now summarize the official teachings for the lower degrees of Freemasonry in the words of high-ranking occultist Blavatsky in keywords, compiled from the texts listed below as sources. In short, she says, Lucifer officially, so for you and the ordinary members, Lucifer officially represents free life, thought, progress, civilization, liberty, independence, brotherliness. But in the unofficial doctrine, that is, in the secret one, the devil becomes the true God, the Logos bringing light, and the serpent becomes the savior. These are her quotes on these pages, which you can find below. And now, to get to the point, she says, quote, "It is Satan who is the God of our planet and the only God, period." End quote. Below are the pages where she says this verbatim. All quotes are from Freemasons or even high-ranking Freemasons. And with just this little bit of background information, we now understand why the avowed Satanist Albert Pike wrote the following to the head of the Illuminati on January 21, 1870, quote, "We must create a super rite which will remain unknown, to which we will call those Masons of high degree, 30th and above, whom we shall select. With regards to our brothers in Masonry, these men must be pledged to the strictest secrecy. Through this supreme rite, we will govern all Freemasonry, which will become the one international center, the more powerful, because its direction will be unknown." End quote. Different sides may argue that these are forgeries. Dear friends, it is all a forgery for the enemy when he is caught. How else could he defend himself? We have these things in plain print for you today, piles of this, with sources where you can look them up. And you could continue quoting such and similar statements until evening. But I tell you, for the sake of time, let us now leave this certainly sufficient introduction and take a look at the typical Masonic symbols to see how this highest right, created by the Satanist Albert Pike, has gained international influence at all levels of our society. What he had in mind, he also implemented. And it doesn't matter what meaning the official word mistakenly attributes to this symbolism. You have just seen what spirit unofficially lies at its origin. And just as it once was said that all roads lead to Rome, today all Masonic symbols line the paths to the coveted world domination of Lucifer, the ruler and prince of all rebellious spirits, as they call him. At this point, as promised, I will now go into a little more detail about the well-known symbol of Baphomet, for this symbol was also worn by the high-ranking Freemason Aleister Crowley. And now you see a highest degree Freemason and Satanist at work. When it comes to war and blood sacrifices, baby sacrifices, and so on. Crowley was a member of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. He was an avowed Satanist and occultist who even boasted of being the Great Beast 666. And in his book, Magic in Theory and Practice, Volume 4, page 87, he gives instructions for magical ritual and human sacrifices. Now we are getting down to the core of the matter, dear ones. Quote, now listen carefully, this is happening at the very top. Quote, the blood sacrifice has always been the most observed part of magic. For the highest spiritual working, one must accordingly choose that victim which contains the greatest and purest force. A male child of perfect innocence and high intelligence is the most suitable sacrifice. For nearly all purposes, human sacrifice is the best. End quote. In the fourth volume of his book series, Magic in Theory and Practice, page 88, he describes that the whole planet must be bathed in blood. Do you understand? This great war would have to be fought, because this would be a magic operation of highest significance. In light of such unpunished Satanist Freemason affirmations, of course, terror attacks, wars, diseases, child abductions, epidemics, and all kinds of decay suddenly gain a whole new dimension. Now there is a logic to what is happening out there all the time. For such perverted world leaders, the fundamental destruction of our world seems to be nothing else than a necessary, desired ritual of sacrifice, even demanded by Satan. In plain words, that would mean that for world leaders of this ilk, even a third world war would represent nothing more than the greatest ever performed ritual sacrifice to the honor of Lucifer, the Satan and the devil. Plandemics and such things as well. The Baphomet service reflects satanic rituals and human sacrifices from the present day back to ancient times. Today I will try to delve into this with you, dear friends. Are you ready? So, good. Already in the year 1098, during the siege of Antioch, Anselm of Ribermont linked Baphomet to his first crusade. However, this Baphomet network has always been covered up by our mainstream media. Whenever you address it, it disappears under the carpet, nothing gets through. That's why we have to talk about it at the 22nd AZK. And what mass media have also categorically kept secret from us at all times and what no justice system has duly recognized and prosecuted are the worldwide interwoven Freemason networks. that form the financial basis of this cult and at the same time endow her with a humane, if not say pious appearance. You understand? They need funds. So let us start with the truly fundamental practices and work as directly as possible to their antique origin. Their entire guild literally does nothing other than meet in secret, utilizing secret symbols, and in secrecy, constantly mutually benefiting each other. These signs state, in plain language, buy here and not elsewhere. In war, these secret signs mean, if you see one of these on my house, you must spare me because I belong with you. And when it comes to any career, if I show this sign or you see this sign, then choose me and only those like me in politics. For example, with this greeting gestures and these symbols. In short, at all levels, we elevate only and exclusively ourselves. Those who bear these signs undertake amongst themselves to always favor and mutually benefit one another. On the other hand, those who do not bear our signs, who do not belong to our secret society, must remain disadvantaged. Nevertheless, all the defrauded non-Masons around the world have no competition commissions to stand up for them. Quite the contrary, if I sell the coffee in my restaurant a bit too cheap, I will get into trouble with the competition commission. But they show no efforts when it comes to Freemasons self-benefiting to a constant tune of billions. Why this is so, you will learn just in this lecture. In short, these mutual favors between Freemasons have categorically excluded the majority of all other competitive participants outside Freemasonry, now for centuries. While every small businessman is immediately threatened with punishment if he favors himself through secret agreements or bribes, our judiciary simply allows Freemasonry in its entirety to go unpunished, and even on a global scale, and that this for centuries. At certain times there were prosecutions, bans, even nationwide expulsions for these secret alliances. However, Freemasonry has always proved to be as tenacious and ineradicable as the poisonous touch-me-not weed. The dangerous thing is its invasive nature. It even ousts native plant species and damages even whole embankments through its flat roots, which leads to erosion. It's the same with Freemasonry, because their root-like secret network has trenched itself through all official authorities and state institutions. Educational establishments, institutes of all kinds, have been infiltrated. And this hidden network covers for each other. They recognize each other via their secret signs. For example, hand signs, signs with the feet, eyes, triangles, square signs, sun signs, spider webs, numbers such as 322, skulls, crossed bones, pyramid signs, many more, alliance signs. Only a courageous union of all disadvantaged peoples, together with security forces, legal services, and a judiciary not complicit with Freemasonry, can put an end to this worldwide corruption by self-benefiting. And you can easily see from the following contribution that we are not dealing with a mere conspiracy theory, but a hardcore conspiracy fact. Here's an overview of the mystery of Masonic symbols and the obelisks that appear everywhere. This secret organization is so powerful and omnipresent that you miss seeing the forest for the trees. Through their worldwide standardization, they were able to enforce this without the people's notice. I refer once again to the secret of the obelisks. Our KLA TV teams were able to photograph over 1,000 obelisks in 122 countries in just a few days, 600 in Switzerland alone. Now you can see a small amount in the screen. I'll give you a little time. You can read the list, and then there are still 30 more countries. All over there you can find these obelisks. This group is so impactful that they are allowed to place their pyramid and obelisk symbols all over the world in places like the following. Let's have a look. At train stations and bridges, post offices and courthouses, at the highest government buildings and federal buildings, at city gates and prison buildings, police buildings and military facilities, village squares, town halls, university buildings and state schools, in theaters and art houses, in municipal buildings and law firms, in village fountains and village squares. From Mainz to China in Tiananmen Square, at castles and palace squares, at war memorials and monuments, at churches, church squares, from St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican to St. Peter's Square in Russia. Monasteries, lakeside promenades, traffic circles, cathedrals, free churches, hospitals, various bank buildings and recreational parks, in casinos and cemeteries, commercial buildings and fortresses, and thousands of other places. Millions are paid for such buildings and giant monuments. The maintenance alone for such a huge obelisk costs several 100,000 Swiss francs a year. But besides the obelisk, they have plenty more symbols. The pyramid is especially important. The pyramid forms the top of each obelisk. The pyramid with a bird on the top shows or represents the sun hieroglyph, and the symbol of the rising sun can be found everywhere, in church windows and facades of castles, banks, archways and bridges, in city gates, towers and state buildings, in commercial buildings and on doors. The alliance symbol can be found everywhere, from churches to bridges, from banks to courthouses, from train stations to commercial buildings, to art galleries and castles. Now we get to the all-seeing eye of Horus. Keep in mind Horus, this name Horus. I will come back to that. The spider's web and the world domination sign, the scallop shell, square and compass, the triangle, Isis also, remember this name please, also known as Venus, the Templar cross, the two pillars of Boaz and Jachin, the fleur-de-lis, a typical elite insignia, the isosceles Celtic cross and the owl, the skull with crossed bones, the number 322, the Dagon hat, the Holy Grail, the staff of Hermes, the double W. Masonic temples often contain all these symbols together. The combination of the triangle paired with the sun symbol, you find the Eye of Horus, can frequently be found in combination with one of the other significant symbols. The higher regional courts of Saxony-Anhalt and Mannheim have the same symbol combinations as the Jesuit Church or the Castle Church of Mannheim, Germany. No wonder, since papacy and Jesuitism is deeply interwoven with Freemasonry, you could list any kind of Freemason priests here, but this would go too far now. The cathedral in Würzburg, Germany, also bears one and the same, as do the Opera House in Frankfurt, the police station, or the Kunsthaus, the art house in Bremen, Germany, the same combinations in cemeteries, municipal theaters, county courts, town halls, the one and the same in Münster, Germany, churches, state chancelleries, in main railway stations, museums, castles, hotels, and all kinds of commercial buildings. All over the world, there are the same signs on similar buildings. No difference between post office buildings, municipal buildings, government buildings, all kinds of commercial buildings, cathedrals, or police buildings. One and the same everywhere, whether at the Corn House or the cantonal police in Bern, from Russian cemeteries to the Hauptwache Urania in Zurich, from residences in Würzburg to the Federal Ministry in Vienna, from Passau Cathedral to Kazan Cathedral in St. Petersburg. The signs of the secret societies accompany us at every turn, but no one tells us why. A global, seamless overview over all obelisks is impossible. Thousands of obelisks have been added in the past decades alone. Furthermore, many stylistically similar obelisk structures were added all over the world. Here are more research pictures of our KLA TV teams. I repeat, while they were photographing the 1,026 obelisks in 122 countries, they discovered still unknown pyramids in almost 40 countries. You see, 40 countries. You can see this here. You can see them in Africa, Egypt, Sudan, Mali, the Middle East and Asia, Iraq, Iran, China, Cambodia, North, Central and South America, Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Peru, and throughout Europe. France, Greece, Italy, Spain. And they even met the legendary Tower of Babel. Now you ask, what does this have to do with pyramids? First I thought only pyramids are only in Egypt, maybe they're in Giza. But they came across the Tower of Babel. This one was not round either, as we were made to believe so far. This is what the Google Earth Foundation looks like, which archaeologist Koldewey excavated in 18 years of painstaking work. The chronological table of world history, published in 1890, taken from a Victorian wall atlas, reveals the Tower of Babel as a gigantic obelisk. Since the spire was planned in the clouds, its final shape would have looked something like this. Or like this.
Jetzt kommen wir zur Bedeutung des Obelisken. Findet man darüber brisante Informationen? Ja, am vielleicht klarsten
really highly significant information.
verkörpert man höre und staune, den leibhaftigen Teufel.
So in Islam, the obelisk represents, and now listen, the living devil. At the end of every Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca, a ritual stoning of this devil takes place. Here he is being stoned to death by more than 3 million Muslims from all over the world. But the Prophet Muhammad already introduced this rite in 630 AD. And we need to move back even further, 1,670 years, to the Akkadian ancient Babylon, because the true roots of Freemasonry that we are speaking of are found there. This part now is very important, that you get the context, the overall context. The obelisk, originally a monolith, was dedicated to the Babylonian sun god Shamash. The devil, however, only comes into play in the higher degree, where you have to consecrate your soul to Lucifer, the light bearer. People liked already in old days to offer human sacrifices to him, even back then, preferably children. As we heard, pure boys. 8 million children disappear every year. Now you know where they go. Obelisks are therefore more than just decorative stone columns. They, however, the sun worship and human sacrifices were not aimed at the sun, because the sun was only the shadow of the ruler Nimrod. Can one make the people believe this? Yes, just as Nero made himself a god in Rome and demanded worship, so did Nimrod, the first Satanist ruler of Babylon, in about 2300 before Christ. He demanded worship as sun god in Babylon. He introduced the initial Lucifer cult. And this primordial Luciferian cult is still being practiced today by occult power elites of the so-called New World Order. The obelisk is also a phallic symbol. In other words, a Luciferian cult is pushing ahead with its world domination with sex and satanic drive. Obelisks are their antennas for magically influencing the people. The sphere on the obelisks foreshadows the world domination of Lucifer. So the Nimrod Luciferian cult spread from Babylon into the world. We continue to ask, it's a bit a sidetrack, did a flood really take place? Is there any evidence for this? Which path made Nimrod's all-round expansion possible? What was the incentive to that? Who was Nimrod? According to Genesis 10, Nimrod was the first occult ruler who declared total war on the God of heaven and earth only 40 years after the flood. Here you heard this, we read this, God is the enemy of humankind. That was here Nimrod. He declared total war on the God of heaven and earth. Incidentally, the biblically attested flood is also visually confirmed by many cultures around the world, such as from the Sumerians through the Gilgamesh epic, through the Akkadian Atrahasis epic, from Muslim to Chinese cultures, and so on. Nimrod returned to the occult connections with supernatural powers that were known to be the main cause of the flood. We know the sons of God came to the humans. In tandem with his occult companions, he swore revenge on God. Who are the occult companions? These are the fallen angels that are described in the Bible. Their Tower of Babel was to defy any future God and any flood. His son cult promised protection to every future generation. Thus Nimrod and his wife Semiramis magnified themselves into gods of heaven that still permeate and enthrall everything today, from Babel to India, to ancient Persia, Egypt, to Libya, Greece, Rome, to the Germanic tribes, right up to us. In order to take revenge on the god of the flood, Nimrod declared himself a god and succeeded in establishing his cult among all peoples. And just as the God of the Bible has many names, Nimrod was also given many names in other cultures. But it was always centered back to his cult, with him as the figurehead. And if you want to understand, how can there be so many names? You see, Jesus, even the Babylonian culture adopted him as oneness and others. In Egypt, he became known as Osiris. In the course of Greek culture, as Kronos or Zeus, son of Kronos, also as Hercules, that is Nimrod the giant, or Nebrod. Then again as Basarius or Dionysos, that's the god of wine. As Phoroneos, the river god, as Berosus, god of fire. In Syrian culture, Nimrod became Dagon. In Israel and Canaan, he became Baal. That was the Baal service with the children's sacrifices. In Roman culture, Nimrod became both Saturn and Bacchus. In Germanic culture, Belus. Nimrod and his wife mother Semiramis symbolized the pantheons of mythology, that is, the entirety of the gods of a people. Nimrod symbolizes the god of war, his wife Semiramis, the goddess of love. Now you may think, Nimrod and Semiramis? I never heard of Semiramis before, so I'll introduce her a bit more. Who is Semiramis? Who exactly was Semiramis and how did her name develop in history? Semiramis was originally the wife of Cush, a grandson of Noah. Because Cush was a rebel, he was killed, and his dismembered body was sent to all the surrounding cities and peoples as a deterrent. His wife Semiramis spread the rumor that Cush had ascended to heaven and became one with the sun. During the day, he would now rule from heaven and by night from the underworld. She was a prostitute. When the whore, Semiramis, then gave birth to her son out of wedlock, she claimed that he was the reincarnation of her deified husband, who had returned as the savior of mankind. Semiramis therefore married her son Nimrod. Later she was also elevated to the status of a goddess in all nations, who had ascended to heaven and is worshipped to this day as the Mother of God or Queen of Heaven. Since then, the cult followers of Nimrod in all cultures have replaced their customs and personalities with their own figures. For example, the Christmas tree or the Easter cult with its Easter ham, since Babylon only represents Nimrod, the murdered and resurrected one. The occult content of Nimrod always remained the same. So just as Nimrod acquired many divine titles, Semiramis also acquired various goddess names and faces in all cultures. Let's have a look at these. Semiramis' name and appearance changed in the course of history as follows. In Babylon, she was first called Semiramis, the Queen of Heaven. In later Babylon, she became Rhea or Ishtar. In Lebanon, she was called Ashtoreth. In Egypt, Isis or Hathor. In Assyria, she became Beltis. In Phoenicia, Astarte. In Greece, she was called Aphrodite. In Rome, Cybele, Diana or Maria. Here the rank and file of the Catholic Church and all the uninitiated people of the world still believe that this woman with child in the arm is Mary, the mother of Jesus, but is Semiramis as Maria, the goddess of the forest. In India, she is called Isi or Devaki. In China, Hengo or Matsupo. In Mexico, Coatlicue. In Scandinavia, Frigg, Freda. The Freemason cult also turns out to be the mother of Christmas. Thousands of years before the birth of Jesus, Babylonians celebrated the 25th of December as the birthday of their sun god, that is, their ruler Nimrod. Semiramis, the widow of Nimrod, was his mother. She claimed to be the Queen of Heaven, and the son Semiramis gave birth to on the 25th of December. Semiramis made the people believe that the rays of the sun, that is, of her husband, had conceived this child. That is why he was called Tamuzi, son of the sun god. This child became the third person of this freely invented divine trinity. When Tammuz was killed over a piece of wood, Semiramis claimed that his blood had caused a green tree to grow overnight. This tree became our famous Christmas tree in honor of Tammuz. Only that you know what you have in your living room at Christmas, if you are connected to this Christian tradition. So this tree obelisk never had anything to do with Jesus. Jesus was born far away from the 25th December. In Babylon, this son was first called Damuzi. He was the pagan Messiah. In later Babylon, Tammuz. In Israel and Lebanon, also Tammuz. In Egypt, he became Osiris or Horus. Keep in mind these names. In Assyria, Hercules. In Phoenicia, Bacchus. In Greece, Dionysus. In Rome, Attis. In India, Krishna. In China, Yi. In Mexico, Quetzalcoatl. I'm not so much able to pronounce this Quetzalcoatl. So many names, so many words. If you cannot see the intonation in the real original language, you're lost. In Scandinavia, Balder. In a worldwide review of the development of the peoples, Revelation 18 summarizes. It's Babylon, it's the all that also under the persecuted Christians when Rome was called Babylon. Babylon was just the name to describe all these this world government, this Satanist cult. We have Revelation 18 saying, Babylon, moreover, your aristocratic leaders were the merchants of the earth. All nations have been deceived by your sorceries and pharmaceuticals. How much does this end-time judgment of God have to do with what we have seen here? We ask again, who are these Babylonian wholesalers today who seduce all nations with their sorceries or pharmaceuticals? And I tell you, from our research, it's the occult Freemasons, and they show their symbols quite openly. Their temples are full of satanic symbols inside and out. The high-degree Satanist and Freemason Crowley summarized it in a nutshell with the triangle, hat, and the overall position. Political Satanists play with their symbols even in urban planning or on passports, you see. One could just interpret all of that, but we don't have the time for this. But you see it on the image, you see these dimensions. Baphomet stands for the nihilistic gender program. Now you understand why. That means the dissolution of the sexes, man, woman, goat, winged creature, all in one person. So, being led back to sodomy or zoophilia, transsexuality, and occult sex. The shell refers to Semiramis as the goddess of the sea, also known as Venus, Aphrodite, and many more. She was also an armed man-killing goddess of protection, a feminist, a patron goddess of the prostitutes, a symbol of unbridled, liberated sexuality and pornographic lust. The Luciferian sun symbol is omnipresent all over, starting from centers such as the White House or the house of the Prime Minister in England, the Vatican or the Jesuits. They all bear the Luciferian sun god sign of Nimrod. Their covenant cord and net means sworn to catch the whole world in the Babylonian net. And as we will see in a moment, the tentacles of this secret society Kraken have truly enmeshed each and every important hub of our institutional life. They dominate our education, our health and medicine. They dictate our religions, ideologies and cultures, our politics and economy, our science and technology, and so on. But I tell you, two of their most dangerous tentacles are their military-industrial complex and their false judiciary that has been imposed on us. But what seems most dangerous to me is their mass media. They form much more than just one kraken tentacle. They're part of the kraken's head and a direct link to its gray eminence. They have led all the world to believe in the existence of a variety of media. But this is an outright lie. As I've been saying for years, all mass media, be it radio, TV or print, at the top level they converge into only one Freemasonry hand. And there we have a look at. Here is the history of this media monopoly. The father of all news agencies is Havas. The French writer Honoré de Balzac already wrote at the end of the 18th century, "Do you now understand the poor conformity of foreign news in all newspapers? Everyone adds color to the news that Mr. Havas, the Lord of the Press, sends, white, green, red or blue. In this regard, there's only one newspaper that is being put together by him, and from which all newspapers derive their information." End of quote. 19th century. And after the coup, the state coup in 1799 through Freemason Napoleon, the number of lodges in France rose from 300 to 1,220 up to 1814, in 10 years. Freemasonry became influential, and this time under Napoleon, Havas started its press work. 1835, Charles-Louis Havas founded the oldest news agencies of this world, of which today's 4 most powerful agencies originated from. Havas was then financed by the French government under Freemason King Louis I and was greatly advantaged to carry out government propaganda. The most influential banker of France, who also exerted great power on the French government at that time, was Freemason James Meyer de Rothschild. As advisor and confidant of the king, he massively influenced politics. So this government not only provided Havas with exclusive access to the new telegraph network back then. Within 25 years, Havas, with the help of the government, was able to eliminate all competitors and thereby obtained a monopoly position as France's news agency with international influence. Then 2 former employees of Havas founded their own agencies, Reuters and Wolf. 1856, Havas concluded a cartel agreement with these 2 agencies and later also with DPA and the Message and Press Office for Germany, BPD, and that was a cartel agreement. Also, other regional agencies were brought into this global monopoly of media coverage. Later, also the AP, Associated Press, one of the largest US news agencies, joined them. Today, we have 3 big agencies that provide us with information worldwide, and they are all based on Havas, AFP, AP, Reuters. German DPA is provided with information by AP. Got it? By the way, you see, and there is such a saying, red kein Havas, 460 years, it means don't speak nonsense. Don't talk Havas. Can be traced back to this Havas. At the end of these revelations, we will present you with something very new, a world novelty, a Freemason world map that was programmed by us. My son Elias will introduce us to this. I hope you are still ready to receive, because I will go on a bit. It will provide you with all information I wasn't able to give you here due to the time. But our AZK and KLA TV teams have researched around 100 Freemason organizations in the first step. So the influence of Freemasonry even showed itself more intensely than assumed. It's like a bottomless pit. The wealth of today's information is only one next step in this whole uncovering work. But if all free investigative educators will add their supplementary knowledge to this Freemason world map, the whole picture will continuously form, of which the unsuspecting world community must get informed about. So let's get ready to add to this. Let's shed light on further elements of the Kraken head. We are still at the head of the Kraken. We are just at the head. Further elements of the head to where the neck begins, where the tentacles, the arms start. When you work at uncovering this global network, unfortunately, you are inclined to perceive each newly discovered subgroup as the secret world government. And that is because the powers of each subgroup are so terrifyingly big and far-reaching. And these power dimensions, really, neither the diligent workers nor most of free investigative educators have real knowledge of these power dimensions. And that's why there are so many definitions of this hidden world government. For some it is the Bilderberg Group, for others the Committee of the 300, or the CFR. Then others say it's the WEF, or currently there are more and more people saying all-encompassing Kraken is BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street and the like. Since the revelations of whistleblower Magaldi, you tend to regard the so-called primordial, the original lodges, as definitely the most secret world government. In reality, however, all just mentioned foundations of Freemason-founded entities belong to one and the same club. You just have to understand that quite a lot of what is presented to us as a competitive battle, be it on a political, economic, scientific, religious, or on a military level, in truth, they are only different functions of one and the same world domination system. Soon, when we will browse through these Freemasonry organizations in their pyramid structure from top to bottom in a minute, we will only follow the main theme of these power structures with their clearly assigned areas of responsibility. They are all organs supplementing each other of one and the same would-be world dominion club. Far up high in the pyramid, the so-called Council of Three is ruling. Where is it? In the Osiris Lodge. Now you can make the connection. That's why the whole structure was so important, that you may see it, this history of the ancient Babylonian origin. Here you find it again in the names of the lodges. The highest, the Council of Three. Today I was told that a kraken has 3 hearts. That's what hunters say. 3 hearts. When you shoot a kraken underwater, it is far from dead. You shoot it and it moves on. If you take one of its arms, the other arms will grab you. The hunters say that there is only one way you can checkmate a kraken in one hit. If you manage to turn the head upside down, that the three hearts are exposed, then it is overcome in one hit. I like this image. So at the high level, the Council of the Three, these three are the heads of the Rothschild and the Rockefeller and the Windsor dynasties. The Windsors have been ruling Great Britain since 1917. After these three, the Council of 13 of the Horus Lodge rules. They are representatives of 13 heritage dynasties whose chair is the chief of the Rothschilds. So that is the Horus Lodge. And then we get to the Heliopolis Lodge. After these, the Council of the 33. These are 33 representatives of heritage dynasties, of hereditary dynasties and chosen personalities whose chair is the head of the Rockefeller family. Then comes the Committee of 300, whose chair or president is the head of the British royal family. There you find black aristocracy and the richest families of the Western world who like to control their governments, as has been known for centuries. Some significant members you can see in the screen. Next level, the CFR is active. The foundation of the Council on Foreign Relations is attributed to the initiative of the Rothschilds. The funding is attributed to the Rockefellers. On the screen you can see significant CFR strategists. You know these names. And the 36 original lodges that have only come to public attention in 2014 are said to have been founded on initiative of the Rothschilds. And now comes the Bilderberg Group that was founded by David Rockefeller and Henry Kissinger. But also the Trilateral Commission can be derived back to its foundation by David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, and Zbigniew Brzezinski. On the sixth level of power ladder, Freemason Bill Gates is climbing with his Gates Foundation, what he is sponsoring. The Open Society Foundations then is another foundation by George Soros. The Rockefeller Foundation, of course, is one of the Rockefellers, and so on. And you see, it's at this point that the individual Kraken tentacles start. All the directions can take different courses depending on each tentacle. For time's sake, I just keep inserting the founders and repeating names on the screen in the back. Because inside individual Kraken tentacles, you can again find highest organizations like, for example, the worldwide largest asset manager and warmonger, BlackRock. You find the World Economic Forum, you find the International Think Tank Group of 30, and the WHO, the UN. One huge tentacle of the Kraken, unfortunately, does not only penetrate our political systems from right to left, but also our judiciary, our laws and international courts. Due to its horror, the First and Second World War formed the necessity and also acceptance to introduce international law. From the beginning, Freemasonry had been the driving force in the staging of these wars as well as with international right. This mirrors the long-term strategy of high-degree Freemason and Satanist Albert Pike. I'm going to name a chain of Freemason-founded entities and organizations that are under strong influence of Freemasons without giving evidence for it in this lecture. But you'll find all evidence in our new digital Freemason world map, and that elaborately, including the names of the founders or interconnections, times and important information. One click, and you have it all together. So let's move on. So here you have UN Security Council, International Court of Justice, International Criminal Court, European Court of Justice. And now we go through some more areas. With one click, you find it. Now we see medicine, and there we have these entities. Pfizer. We have the control group, EMA, the Red Cross, the WHO. We have the FDA. We have the NIAID. We have the CDC. We have Johnson & Johnson, Hoffmann La Roche, BioNTech. We have Sanofi. We have the founders of the vaccine idea: Edward Jenner, Robert Koch, Louis Pasteur, Joseph Kenyon. We have the Gates Foundation. We have the CP. We have Medicines Without Borders. Then, in terror war, we have the CIA, the FSB and KGB in Russia, the MI6 in Britain, Gladio in Italy, Al-Qaeda. We have the NATO, the Munich Security Conference, the OSCE. We have the 9/11 Commission and so on, the NIST. We have the Carlyle Group. In the area of science, we have Palantir, the CERN in Switzerland, the Leopoldina in Germany, the Royal Society in UK, DARPA, USA, Evolutionary Biology in England, MK Ultra in USA, mind control. Then, education, we have university, the Massachusetts, the MIT,
Stanford University, Harvard University, Imperial College of London, University of Cambridge, University College London, University of Chicago, Yale University, Skull and Bones, University of Oxford,
international educational organizations, OECD,
UNICEF.
then we have child aid organizations,
Children, International Planned Parenthood Federation, IPPF, World Vision International. Themenbereich Medien.
Now in the sector of media,
Agence France
there we have AFP,
AP, Associated Press, Reuters, the Walt Disney Company, Metro Goldwyn Mayer, MGM, Warner Brothers, Motion Picture Association, MPA, 20th Century Fox, FSK, globale Freimaurer-Tech-Giganten,
Global Freemason Tech Giants,
Google, Facebook, Themenbereich Umwelt,
in the sector of environment and technology,
WWF,
the WWF, the NASA.
Themenbereich Politik,
In politics, we have
EU
the UN, the EU administration, the G7,
G20,
the G20.
Themenbereich Wirtschaft,
In economy, we have
Vanguard, Blackstone Group.
Seht ihr, ihr Lieben,
You see, dear ones, we could go on for hours,
aber für heute soll es mal
but this should be sufficient for today.
hier Black vorkommen.
When you think that when you see how often they say black, you see our films become more and more demonic, satanic. Even this Gotthard tunnel inauguration was full with satanic symbols. Did you notice this? Here you can join the dots. Here you see how more and more the Satanism is promoting the abolishment of all the values. This is really a conspiracy fact. When you now consider that these addicts of world rule are the major puppeteers and profiteers of almost all big wars of the past. When you think of Napoleon and so on. And if you consider further that these same circles have worked out a program to expropriate all peoples of the earth and force them into total surveillance. Considering all this, I can only suggest this. Instead of going into their wars and falling for their vaccine folly, their climate lies, their expropriation programs, and the like, we better finally pull this secret tangle still entirely into the light, before the public eye, and examine this to the bottom by means of an independent court of justice authorized by popular vote. And if what was said today is confirmed, arrest these people. That was only the beginning, what we showed up today. Also, what we brought together now over months, that is only a little bit of all that exists. And we will call you to help us. However, one cannot overcome this secret society, Kraken, with human weapons, for they own the NATO, for example, as their private army in secret. So it needs an awakening of all the peoples worldwide. We need a total transparency in these things and a total turning away from their warmongering and systematic fraud. What it needs now is uniting of the deceived peoples to active synergic resistance. And it can only get there, we can only get there when really all people from all nations, all religions, philosophies, and branches of politics, of science, economy, culture, etc., become active. And this satanic cult that we looked into here has used the past centuries to really do a complete job. They have just caused divisions between all these interest groups in a targeted manner, and via media and offers of lust, they manipulated them into idleness and indifference. And only in one respect, these secret societies' allies have managed to create a worldwide unity. Namely, in the viewpoint that one cannot do anything oneself, that some redeemer must come from outside to put an end to this utter chaos down here. This general viewpoint, unfortunately, is prevalent in all the religions, all the philosophies, and in general in all the average earth dwellers. I think this is really a common denominator everywhere. So this passive expectation was spread and awakened strategically and in a targeted manner. Whenever you will address anyone and confront him with the real world problems, then you will get the answer, yeah, it's terrible, really, but I really cannot change anything with it. And so some wait on their Redeemer from heaven, the other wait for the Americans of Israel, others of the two witnesses of the Revelation. But I tell you, it has to go the other way around, dears. I say you and me, every single earth dweller is needed now. as we have united in we cannot do anything, let us now unite in yes, we can do something. Otherwise, nothing will work. So I say, come and stand up now. All you earth dwellers, raise your voices, all you humans. We need you, Muslims. We need you, Hindus. You are needed, Muslims. You are needed, Hindus. You are needed, Buddhists. And we need you, Scientologists, you Mormons, Christians, Jehovah's Witnesses, and free churches. Here also all esoterics are needed, all humanists, all left-wing adherents, and those from the right wing, also those from the center, politically. I tell you seriously, with all emphasis, rise up together with us. Also you scientists and technologists, you environmental activists and jurists, you unbiased judges, public prosecutors, and awakened journalists. You are needed. We need you from the cultural sector as well from the medical sector, you teachers and educators. In fact, simply all. All are needed. And upon closing, I want to highlight again the beginning. For God dwells in you, in all of you whom I just mentioned. He lives in all of you, desiring to express His power and strength, even His perfection through you. As Jesus said, therefore you are to be perfect, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Because wants to do something through you, through all you humans out there, and don't wage religious wars anymore. Finished. He lives inside every one of you, in every single one. And as I pointed out already in the last two speeches, for this reason we nevertheless can overcome these apparently invincible ones. And how? By our synergic commands in faith, by our proclamations. Others call them prayers, as we pronounce them creatively every morning from 6 to 6:05 a.m. all over the world. These prayers of faith set these heavenly hosts in motion who have been waiting for millennia just that we give them a green light to intervene. Now I'll give away the mystery of God before the big public, you understand? We heard today all the religions hide their secrets. Now I'll uncover it for all of you, for all the others, for the whole world, without any distinction if you are only just humans who have an upright heart. Listen, this last battle, this is the mystery, the last battle down here will be fought on a purely spiritual level. Then it's finished with any bombing, finished with any saber rattling, a purely spiritual level. And we are not talking about human weapons here, let alone more lethal weapons than we already have known. No, we speak of synergic commands proclaimed simultaneously by all peace lovers and righteous people and all holy ones, if you like. And now I give you such an example. I created these words, we keep proclaiming these. Every day we proclaim it, every day. We proclaim, you all, secret society Satanists, judge yourselves, betray yourselves, annihilate yourselves. That is the most central command coming from our mouth. And that is the reason why such Magaldis are standing up. These have been at the highest top of the highest degree Freemasons, and such proclamations lit the fire under their butt. It woke them up, kept burning in them. They only could cry out what they have in mind. They wrote down 600 pages, gave away what they could. All entrails were turned inside out. Why? Because it came over them like fire. And they were convicted that they're going to cause the most horrible chaos in the world. Now they are like woken up, you understand? That is spiritual warfare. Wake up! What am I doing here? Am I out of my mind? Slay a whole world? Fight against God? Am I out of my mind after all? Who am I? All you secret alliance Satanists, judge yourselves, betray yourselves, annihilate yourselves. It can no longer be, it can no longer be the task of helpless fellow humans or even armed powers to bring such unbending ones to their knees. I repeat, the last act consists in self-judgment, in self-betrayal, in self-annihilation if there is no other way. That is how God acts in these end times. That is the secret you have to know. That's how God acts, for it is written in the unfalsified original texts of the New Testament. You know, I have been translating the New Testament word by word with all the context, and it has been castrated or manipulated, also by these people. Wrongly translated. Revelation 5:13 describes that in the final round of this battle where we are in now, not a single constraint will be applied from outside. Why? Because even the worst of the worst will get so much fire under their butts that they will judge themselves. You can read it there in other words. Revelation 18 verse 20 testifies to God executing this judgment himself. When? As soon as it is pronounced by the lips of all us righteous ones, when the whole world community that has justice in their hearts is commanding this as with one mouth, exactly then it will happen. Exactly then it will happen through these people. Then God forms something new. It has to be pronounced by you, by all of you out there, whom I listed off. Yes, this judgment. Listen how it reads literally, and I show you how they castrated such texts. Now we are talking about this final battle, about the typical Armageddon in the spirit, and I tell you another statement about this. Armageddon in spirit is now. That's the final battle, the world battle deciding between light and darkness. And if we, I tell you now how it will be, if we lose this battle, we who love justice, who love each other, who are for truth, for light and for justice, if we lose this battle, then this Armageddon will happen we have been threatened with in the Bible so far. But only then. It depends, I translated all of that, it depends if we now learn to speak these commands. If it will come from our hearts or not, that is the crucial point. Now listen to the text, how it is written in reality in the original text still today, only it was translated differently, cancelled, censored by this gang. Rejoice over them, O heaven, and you available ones to God, and messengers and prophets, because God has judged your judgment of them. And do you know what is written in the Bible today? God has pronounced judgment for you against them. So we are waiting for God. They castrated this, right? Tell it to the pious. The Freemason pastors are coming along who have persecuted us, by the way. I found out about all these things because I needed an answer to the question, why is the whole church persecuting me? When I rehabilitate people free of charge, when I do everything for free, why do they all persecute me? Then I found out these are not pastors, these are wolves in sheep's skins. Indeed, then I translated it. Officially it reads, God will do all this for you. Then they preach, the dear Savior will come in the right moment and you will rapture into heaven, and then the Savior will do everything all by himself. The Bible says just the opposite. God is coming through you, or he is not coming at all. God is coming, but through you, or he does not come. And he is coming in his manner. He is not coming like the old slaughterers and makes again a bloody war or the like. God has judged your judgment against them. That is our judgment that we speak. Judge yourselves, betray yourselves, become whistleblowers, annihilate yourselves when there is no other way. We won't take a dagger in our hands, no saber, nothing, that you will do yourselves. This is the last battle. So let us in conclusion speak this ruling together in full faith. I give you an example, I will still come back to it. This is one of the prayer proclamations of these days that we will still hand out to you. I read it to you. That's how it sounds then in the morning all over the world. As pronounced in unity, that is our judgment. As pronounced in unity, you hypocrites, draw near, ashamed. All by yourselves you will confess what you did to whom and how. Shout out loud to all the world how you bribed our guardians, so instead to our protection they were drawn to your corruption. And now comes the decisive verse. Salvation fire, blazing hot, makes you speak out for all to know. your lies and fraud in every case, and who partook in this foul play. It's a bit poetic, but that's how it is. Please get our 31 Days Proclamation brochure. The link for the download you'll find displayed in the back, and we will insert it below the broadcast text when this speech will be published. Then let us make daily use of this possibility granted to us from heaven. You will read more about this in the brochure. In this way, we will be together every day for at least 5 minutes, or if you can, even 15 minutes with some more topics, in every country of the earth at the local time from 6 to 6:05 a.m. or 6:15 a.m. for those wanting to go deeper spiritually, up to healing, physical healing indeed. Now I can only thank you for your listening with patience and for your joining in synergically. And I say, I love you, we love you, and we need you. We really need you. And I say, as usual, I'm Ivo Sasek, who has been standing before God since 1977.
Thank you, Dad, for this amazing speech. I got goosebumps several times and was really captivated with this topic. I've experienced what you've went through to receive, to write down the speech. And yeah, so as we already have seen, I want to show you the details of how you can tap into this research. So many hundreds of people have worked on this research. We researched, we programmed this. It was months of work, and I'll present you the result now here. The research is available on vetopedia.org, the free encyclopedia of counter voices. And I briefly want to show you how this map works, how it's built up, how it's put together. And I want to give you a few tips how to use this in practical everyday. So if you go to vetopedia.org, you'll see all categories. And we now click into the category Freemason-founded entities. So this page will accompany us today in also in other categories. So there are two different overviews here. One, there's the map, and one is the list. The world map shows exactly 100 Freemason foundations. Our goal was to reach 100 foundations, and actually yesterday evening they managed to reach 100. So here we have 100 Freemason founded entities. So as I said, it's once available as a map. If we go to list, it's the same results, only a different view to kind of cover different needs, how you want to have the information. So if you zoom into this map, so for example, we go here to US, say to New York. Now you see all the different entities, and you can click on BlackRock here, for example. Here's a short text, and if I click here, then it switches into this list view, and here in detail you have the whole research like a professional article, plus all the sources, the hyperlinks, as well as an extra abstract on how it's linked to Freemasonry. So this is all made visible in a great way. So all of these entities are exposed this way. So you can use the filter function in order to kind of, you can filter all of these entities. So we can, for example, filter according to filling with terror, and now you see with a little icon with a war jet, fighter jet, and you see all the entities that are linked with terror. So, and that helps you use this map for your needs. This should be an encyclopedia where you can really, as an author, as an investigative journalist, you can use that as a source. And it really may be used free of charge. It's there to be spread all over the world, to be used all over the world. And in the near future, this could look like this. So say you're planning to do a report on the G20 summit. That's going to happen in November now, by the way. So you go into the search, you enter G20, and then you can tap into all of our research on G20. You can look this, you can take parts, you can use whatever you need, you can find the sources. It's all for your free use. So in a few days, we'll also have the COP, the Climate Summit of the United Nations. You just enter, for example, UNO, and then you see all the organizations that are connected to the UN, and you can use that in your research. Same with the Munich Security Conference in February 2026, or the Bilderberg Conference that will be upcoming next year again. So, by the way, on a side note, in the Bilderberg group, you'll also find some documents, some very interesting documents. Here's, for example, a list of all the participants from 1954 to 2025, which is also a very, very interesting document. So it's all available here in this encyclopedia, ready, free to use. What about foreign languages? So since starting today, Vitopedia is available in 21 languages. If you click on the little language, the flag icon up there, you can choose the respective language you want to have. Now I'm going to move to Spanish. As you can see, if something is not translated into Spanish, you have a little button. You can click this button and it will be translated into the language. So it says there, please translate to Spanish. And that's how it works in all languages, so that this can be spread as far as possible. Exactly. You're very welcome and allowed to share your knowledge and more entities. So always on the top, beneath the banner, you can click this button and this will be called the report Freemason founded entity, report entity. Then you enter your knowledge in there and our editors will do a double check, and then hopefully it will be published soon. So at the very bottom of each of these reports, on the left, there's a button called Report Additions to this article. Then you can enter your name, your edition you want to have added to the article. And again, our editors will check it, and hopefully it will be added.
Jahrhunderte alt, geheim und versteckt, Fäden gezogen und Pläne ausgeheckt, in Logen und Bünden an die Hebel der Macht, ganz subtil unterwandert im Nebel der Macht. Unsere schöne Welt liegt im Netz der Logen gebannt, gefangen wie eine Fliege im Spinnennetz unser Land. Weltherrschaft Clubs drücken jetzt das Rad der Zeit. Komitee der Blätter, Hunde, Bilder, Berger, ihre Arme reich und weit. Der größte Umbruch aller Zeiten ist im Gange. Weltumspannend, gigantisch, wir warten schon nicht lange. In allen Ländern stehen Kämpfer des Lichts bereit. Nimm mach du deinen Stab, es ist soweit. Nie zuvor waren wir so nah dran. Jetzt kommt Licht in alle dunklen Ecken. Nicht irgendwann, nie zuvor waren wir so nah dran. Alles lückenlos aufzudecken ist unser Programm. Wenn du das tust, hast du Power ohne Ende, böse Herrscher fliehen. So kommt die Wende, reih dich alles Glied in unsere Kette. Befesseln wir das Böse jede Wette. Spot on, auf den Krakenkopf fällt Licht. So werden seine Krakenarme lahm, verlieren ihr Gesicht. Auf uns gelegte Depression kommt über sie. Und Verwirrung aussichtslos, wie noch nie. In ihren eigenen Netzen werden sie verstrickt. In ihre eigenen Stricke fest verzwickt. Die Panik, die sie schüren auf sie selbst, wendet sie sich jetzt. Unsere Erhöhung kommt und auch Ruhe zulässt. Der größte Umbruch aller Zeiten ist im Gange. Weltumspannend, gigantisch, wir warten schon nicht lange. In allen Ländern stehen Kämpfer des Lichts bereit. Nimm mach du deinen Stab, es ist soweit. Nie zuvor waren wir so nah dran. Jetzt kommt Licht in alle dunklen Ecken. Nicht irgendwann, nie zuvor waren wir so nah dran. Alles lückenlos aufzudecken ist unser Programm. Wenn du das tust, hast du Power ohne Ende, böse Herrscher fliehen. So kommt die Wende, reih dich alles Glied in unsere Kette.